I'm Vivian. Sitting in my warm living room, the soft glow of the fireplace casting a cozy light, I'm reflecting on how far I've come. It's Christmas, and for the first time in years, I feel a sense of true peace. The house is quiet, save for the gentle crackling of the fire and the soft rustle of the snow outside. It all started when my daughter-in-law, Lily, called to tell me that her mother didn't want me on their family vacation to the Alps. I remember sitting by the window in my kitchen in Seattle, looking out at the cherry blossoms in my garden as she spoke. Her voice was cold, as if she were discussing a business deal rather than a family trip. "I'm sorry, Vivian, but my mom really doesn't want you there. It's just better this way," she said. Those words cut through me like a knife, but I didn't show it. I'd lost my husband, Henry, 3 years ago, and since then, I'd been supporting my son, Ethan, and his wife financially. I paid for their apartment rent, their car loans, and even gave them a monthly allowance of $5,000. I took a deep breath and replied calmly, "I understand. Enjoy your trip." Then I hung up. I wasn't one to cry or throw a tantrum. I was a woman of action. I opened my banking app on my tablet and saw all the recurring transfers. My finger hovered over the delete button. For a moment, I hesitated. But then I thought, if I'm such a burden, maybe they'll be happier without my money. With a few clicks, I ended years of financial support. The next morning, I woke up early as usual. I brewed a cup of strong coffee and sat on the patio, enjoying the stillness. Normally, I would have called Ethan to check if they'd arrived safely, but not today. I looked at the spare room, which was filled with Lily's designer clothes and Ethan's sports equipment. They'd been using it as a storage space because their apartment was too small. I decided it was time for a change. I went to the garage and got some heavy-duty boxes. I started packing their things methodically, labeling each box clearly. In the afternoon, I drove to the city center and bought a ticket for a solo art tour in Paris, a trip I'd always dreamed of but never had the chance to take because I was always there for Ethan and Lily. That evening, I checked my phone. There were no messages. I could almost picture them in the mountains, sipping expensive wine and laughing at the old-fashioned mother at home. Little did they know, the money tap had been turned off. Banks don't process transactions over the weekend, but the cancellations were already in the system. I sat on the patio with a book, knowing that Monday would be a wake-up call for them. Sure enough, at 9 o'clock on Monday morning, my phone started vibrating in the drawer. I ignored it at first. I knew what had happened. The transfers had failed, and for Ethan and Lily, who lived paycheck to paycheck, it was a disaster. After the third call in 10 minutes, I pulled out my phone. There were 10 missed calls from Ethan and 3 from Lily. Then, the first text, "Mom, is there a problem with the bank?" The rent payment bounced. I sipped my tea and thought, it's not a bank problem. It's my decision. I didn't reply. Instead, I called a locksmith. I wanted to change the locks because Ethan still had a key, and I wanted my privacy. While the locksmith was working, more messages flooded in. The tone quickly changed from concern to accusation. "We're at the hotel, and Lily's credit card was declined because the backup account is empty." "What's going on?" Ethan wrote. It was amazing to see how quickly their masks of concern dropped when the money stopped. I paid the locksmith in cash and held the new keys in my hand. It was a small step, but it felt like a huge statement. My house was mine again. In the afternoon, Ethan called. His voice was frantic. "Mom, we're in a huge financial crisis here. Didn't you see our messages?" I replied calmly, "I don't have a financial crisis. My accounts are fine." There was a long silence on the other end. Then Lily's voice barked in the background, "We were counting on that money. It's our budget for the month." I leaned back in my armchair and said, "You should plan your budget with your own money, Lily. Not with mine. Since I wasn't invited on the trip, I see no reason to keep financing it. And you both have jobs. It's time you paid your own bills. Ethan sounded desperate. But Mom, we already booked an expensive chalet and a rental car. We can't just leave. Why didn't you warn us? I almost smiled. Warn you? Did you warn me when you cut me out of the vacation? I'm just adapting to your need for an inner circle. Ethan tried to argue that it was blackmail, but I corrected him. Punishment would be taking something that belongs to you. I'm just stopping the gifts. There's a big difference. And by the way, your things are packed in the garage. I'm turning the spare room into a painting studio. Lily started screaming about how ungrateful I was, but I waited for her to finish. Then I said, I'm hanging up. I have an appointment with a landscaper. When you get back, call first. I have new locks. The next day, I went to my favorite cafe. As I enjoyed my croissant, I thought about Ethan's reaction. He'd become so influenced by Lily that he'd forgotten what respect meant. I turned on my phone briefly to confirm my Paris trip. Immediately, notifications bombarded me. There were 50 missed calls since Friday. There was a message from my sister-in-law, asking what was going on because Lily was posting on social media that I'd abandoned them on vacation. I opened the app and saw Lily's post, a picture of the Alps with a sob story about family instability and how sad it was when you couldn't rely on the older generation. The comments were full of sympathy at first. But I typed a short, factual comment, Dear Lily, I'm glad you're enjoying the trip. I didn't know you defined reliability as my $5,000 monthly allowance. I thought family meant mutual respect, not just a money transfer. Have fun in the Alps. Within minutes, the comment section exploded. People started doing the math and realized that $5,000 a month was more than most families made. The tide turned, and people started criticizing Lily and Ethan for being spoiled. I deleted the app from my phone. I didn't need digital validation. It just felt good to tell the truth. A couple of days later, the doorbell rang. It was Ryan, Lily's brother. He looked uncomfortable. Vivian, I was asked to check in. The mood on the trip has tanked. They had to switch to a cheap motel. Lily is losing it, and Ethan is a mess. He's asking if you could at least cover the rent one last time as a loan. I shook my head. Ryan, you're a good man, but don't let them use you as a messenger. Ethan has my number. If he wants a loan, he can sign a contract and provide collateral. I'm on retirement now. Ryan sighed and said, I get it. Lily crossed a line. It was disrespectful. I replied, it was eye-opening. It showed me where I stood. And now, I'm planning my own vacation. We had coffee in the kitchen and talked about his carpentry business. It was nice to have a normal conversation that didn't revolve around Ethan and Lily's problems. When Ryan left, I packed my suitcase for Paris. I spent 5 wonderful days there, visiting art galleries, walking along the Seine, and enjoying French cuisine without checking my phone once. When I got back to Seattle on Friday evening, I saw Ethan and Lily sitting on my front porch, surrounded by a few bags. They looked exhausted. Ethan jumped up. Mom, where have you been? We've been waiting for hours. I said calmly, I was on vacation, Ethan. I told you I'm starting to take care of myself. Lily looked a mess. Her hair was unkempt, and her face was full of stress. Vivian, we need to talk. This lock thing is too much. We can't even get our stuff. I replied, your things are safe in the garage. I'll unlock it for you, but you're not coming in tonight. I'm tired from traveling. Ethan pleaded, Mom, the landlord sent us an eviction notice. We're broke. Everything went to the cancellation fees at the chalet. I looked at my son and said, Ethan, you're 32 years old. You have a job at an advertising agency. Where's your paycheck? He stammered, it wasn't enough for the lifestyle we wanted. I opened the front door and said, then you need to change your lifestyle. That's reality. I'll open the garage for you. We can talk next week, but only if you have a plan to support yourselves. I hit the garage door button and closed the front door. I heard Lily's angry hissing outside, but I didn't care. I made a cup of tea and sat in my living room, enjoying the peace. On Monday, Ethan called again. This time, his voice was different. He sounded more accepting. "Mom, can we meet at a coffee shop?" I agreed. I wanted to see if the real Ethan was still there under all the entitlement. We met at a small coffee shop near my house. Ethan had a folder with him. He started quietly. I did the math. "Without your help, we can't afford the apartment. We gave notice and are moving to a smaller place on the outskirts of the city." I nodded. "That's a good first step, Ethan." He continued, "Lily is furious. She says you betrayed us, but I've done a lot of thinking. We treated you like an ATM. I'm really sorry, Mom." I looked at him for a long time. "Apologies are just words, Ethan. Actions matter. I'm not paying the rent this month. You'll have to take out a loan or sell the car. You need to learn about responsibility." He swallowed hard. "I know. I've already returned the leased car and started taking the bus to work." I asked about Lily, and he said she was looking for a full-time job. I said, "Good. Once you get your debts under control and prove you can be independent for a year, we can have a normal relationship. But the money from me is over. I'm using my savings for my travels and my hobbies." Ethan nodded slowly. It was a difficult process for him, but it was necessary. Over the next few months, I transformed my house. My painting studio became my haven. I made new friends in an art class, people who had similar experiences of letting go of their adult children. I heard from Ethan regularly, but less often. He stopped asking for money and started sending me photos of his new, modest apartment. He seemed proud of it. He also told me he'd learned to cook because eating out had become too expensive. Lily kept her distance, which was fine with me. Without her influence, Ethan started acting more like the kind-hearted boy I'd raised. One day, I got a letter from Lily's mother. She apologized for the misunderstanding before the trip, saying she hadn't known how much I'd been supporting them. I didn't write back. Some apologies are just for show. As I sit here on this Christmas evening, I look at my phone. There are no desperate calls or texts. Just a message from my new friend in the art class wishing me a Merry Christmas. I lean back and close my eyes, feeling the warmth of the fire and the peace in my heart. I've lost the old version of my family, but I've found a new, more real relationship with Ethan. And most importantly, I've found myself again. The truth may be painful, but it's the only path to real peace.